Here's a question on everybody's mind. Is the 8A program going away? What about the other set-asides? Service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, HubZone, woman-owned small business. There's a lot of noise out there, and if you've been listening to the news, you may be concerned about the set-asides associated with small business government contracting. In this video, I'm going to walk you through each of the set-asides, the major ones, to tell you exactly where we are. And by the end of the video, I'm going to talk about one particular set-aside that's actually stronger right now than it ever has been, and it looks to be getting stronger. But before I get to that, I want to set the record straight. I want to tell you the truth about these set-asides, something you probably haven't heard. Set-asides are meant to level the playing field a little bit for small businesses so we can compete against large businesses. But I can tell you, as a former government acquisitions officer, I have never once, never, ever awarded a contract to a small business because they had some type of set-aside. There's one thing that matters more than anything else when selling to the government. Can you guess what this is? You have to have an amazing product, service, or technology to sell to the government. Yes, the most important thing is that you actually provide value, not your set-aside or certification. It is extremely hard to sell to the government, even if you have one of these set-asides. Okay? It's still a 12 to 18-month process for most contracts. What matters more than anything else is that you have an amazing solution, amazing service, and that you've been providing it over time. Ideally, you've been in business for a few years, you have customers, you have revenue coming in before you even try to sell to the government. The set-asides for small business are not to set you up as a middleman or a go-between. In fact, there's a lot of scrutiny right now because a couple companies recently have lied to the government, and that's exactly how they set them up. And I would not want to be in their shoes right now. So before we get into the state of 8A, most important thing is that you have a business, that you provide an amazing product, solution, or technology. And I'm going to add one more thing. You have to have a sales team, somebody that is trained to sell to the US government. That's probably what you're doing here right now, is learning how to sell to the government. So let's now get into the state of the 8A program. Now, the 8A certification is for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses or business owners to help them sell to the government. Now, this set-aside or certification, among all of them, does move the needle a little bit more because it allows the government to sole source contract these type of businesses a little bit easier. I can tell you from experience, trying to award a sole source contract to a company, even if that company was the only company on earth that could do the thing that the government needed them to do, still takes a long time for the government to do that. There's a lot of paperwork, so the 8A removes some of those restrictions. Again, not a panacea. Contracts don't fall out of the sky into 8A business owners. I've consulted with plenty of them that were completely unable to win any contract until we had a discussion about their pathway forward. So it can still be really difficult, but that's what the 8A program is designed to do. It's been around for decades, but 2025 has been absolutely brutal for the 8A program. Here are the facts. First, mid-2023, a federal court case ruled that the SBA could no longer presume disadvantage based on race alone. So essentially now when a company is applying to the 8A program, they've had to include a narrative discussing their disadvantaged or economically disadvantaged status. Now that also includes social disadvantages. And what ended up happening is SBA temporarily halted all new applications and pending approvals while they figured out how they were going to comply with this. Because the data doesn't lie, right? If you watch our videos, you know how much time we spend on looking at the actual contracting data that the government puts out there. This is the advantage we have selling to the government, is that most of this data is public, okay? So let's look at the 8A program. In 2025, only 66 companies were admitted into the 8A program. Now, if you compare that to 2024, where 550 new applicants were admitted. Now, what does that tell you? It tells me a lot fewer companies are getting through the system. Okay, so that is definitely worth thinking about if your intention is to put an application in for this 8A program. In January 2025, the SBA reset the small disadvantaged business contracting goal from 15% back down to 5%, which is where it originally was to begin with. Now, these are goals that the SBA sets for federal agencies. Most federal agencies meet or exceed them, but not always, and they are just goals. Now, this created some confusion in contracting offices, and one thing that has happened this year, now in June of 2025, the SBA ordered a full-scale audit of the 8A program. This came after the Justice Department exposed a massive bribery scheme. Now, the allegations say millions of dollars in contracts were then steered to certain 8A companies. Now, the SBA also suspended a prominent 8A contractor, supposedly in violation of the 50% rule. Essentially, what you need to know is, especially with these set-asides, if you win a contract and you're, say, a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, you're required to do a certain amount of the work, right? And this makes sense, okay? And so for all you budding middlemen out there, I want you to think about this as well. You're required, typically, on these contracts, each one's a little bit different, but the prime contractor, which is who you are if you win a contract, you're required to do a certain amount of the work, and it's usually going to be highlighted in the proposal, in the solicitation, when you're putting all of that together. It's going to tell you how much of the work the prime has to do. Now, the allegation was essentially that one of these companies was set themselves up as a pass-through. So other companies would do the work, but they would be the prime contractor. So essentially, it's costing the taxpayer more dollars because we have this middleman that probably shouldn't have been there to begin with, right? So this is where we have to be very, very careful. You want to have an amazing product or solution, right? Be providing value to the government. And if you are 8A or you happen to get this 8A set aside, this can help you certainly win more contracts if you use it ethically and the way it's supposed to be used. But you want to be providing value. That is number one. Now, here's a question on everybody's mind. Is the 8A program going away? And the answer, I want to take a quick second to talk to anybody watching this that's interested in starting a government contracting business or starting a new profession in government contracting. The students that graduate our program, they go on to start their own consulting firms, winning high-dollar consulting clients. They go on to land high-paying salaried positions as account executives with companies that sell to the government. I'm so proud of the people that have gone through our program. And if you are considering either a job or a business, and by the way, some of our students are doing both, as I did, they're running a consulting business and they'll have an account executive job. It's transforming their lives. It's bringing true wealth to them and their families. Back to the video. Now, here's a question on everybody's mind. Is the 8A program going away? And the answer, as far as I can tell, is no. I don't think anything's going to happen to the 8A. I think it's going to be harder to use. I think there's going to be more scrutiny. You may not see as many 8A contracts as you had in the past, but the 8A program's not going to go away unless an act of Congress makes that happen. And considering the government's closed right now, I have very little faith that Congress could get together and make the 8A program go away. Personally, by the way, I don't think it should go away. I think these set-asides can each be used for the reason they were intended, which is level the playing field a little bit, make it a little bit easier for small businesses to sell to the U.S. government. Because look, the big defense companies have huge teams of trained salespeople, and they are firmly entrenched in a lot of these federal agencies. Small businesses can and should be providing services and technology to the government. It's going to make the government better. There were certain instances where I would want a small business in the mix, especially with these technology companies, right? Small tech companies, startups, they have great ideas, new and innovative technology that often gets killed with bigger companies that kind of act more like a government organization, right? So there are absolutely times where small businesses should be on contract with the government. And that goes for small businesses providing services and whatnot too, right? Absolutely. Local business, local construction business, plumbing company coming onto the base to do work. There are a lot of great reasons to have programs designed for small businesses. The problem is that some small businesses have been abusing these, and some government organizations either were misinformed on how to properly use companies, small businesses, with these set-asides. The bottom line with 8A is that right now, the 8A program is under intense scrutiny. And my recommendation to any 8A business is focus on your company, ensure that you are providing an amazing product, solution, technology, service, and understand what 8A is intended for and use it ethically. If you've been counting on a certification to drive your business, then you have a problem on your hands. But if you focus on having a great business and providing value, then you should be perfectly fine. And by the way, even before the scrutiny happened, 8A businesses in particular realize, the ones that survive, realize that they have to learn how the regular government contracting process works for their company about halfway through, because 8A, you're not 8A forever, you're 8A for a certain number of years, and you want to make sure you can transition off of that set aside and compete with the other businesses. That's one of the points of this program. Help you get started, but you have to get off of it, okay? So this is not the end of the world. Make sure you have an awesome business. Go win some contracts. Now let's talk about the Woman-Owned Small Business Program. The SBA's goal for woman-owned small business contracting is 5% of all contracts going to woman-owned small business. But in 2025, the SBA tightened those rules significantly. In January 2025, new rules had one laser-focused question, and that is the woman-owned small business actually owned and being ran by a woman? So here's what changed with the Woman-Owned Small Business Program. The woman who qualified the business, meaning if you are the person that achieved the Woman-Owned Small Business certification, you have to work full-time on that business. You cannot have outside employment that would take you away from running that business. If the woman was to take on some type of job which would take her away from running that business full-time, she'd have to then notify the SBA. In other words, you can't be a nominal owner of the woman-owned small business and not have that be your full-time job. Now, there's some other guidance out there about decertification. So the SBA, at the end of the day, wants to ensure that woman-owned small business benefits are going to businesses that are actually owned and run by businesses. So clearly, the SBA wants to ensure, at the end of the day, that woman-owned small business benefits are being provided to businesses that are actually owned and operated by women. No more woman-owned business on paper, but somebody else is actually running the business. That doesn't count anymore. So if you are a legitimate woman-owned business, you got nothing to worry about. The program is in great shape. It is stable. There's a little bit more scrutiny. There's some more reporting requirements, but the set-aside's not going away. But doesn't change my thesis, which I'm going to keep foot stomping through the entirety of this video, which is that set aside is nowhere near as important as you having an awesome business and you know how to sell to the government. Okay, HubZone. The HubZone program channels federal contracting dollars to businesses located in historically underutilized areas. And 3% is the goal that is set typically for federal agencies to award contracts to HubZone certified businesses. The good news is many of the changes that have taken place make it easier to qualify as a HubZone business. I'm going to read this. The SBA shortened the employee residency requirement from 6 months down to just 90 days. So a new hire in a HubZone counts towards your 35% requirement after only 3 months. But I think one thing to pay attention to is that the SBA is now authorizing HubZone audits. So if you are a HubZone company and you were awarded a contract for a HubZone set-aside, for instance, then be prepared for the SBA to come in and audit your company, making sure that your HubZone employees are actually working. They're not just names on a list. So transparency, make sure we understand these set-asides and certifications is really the name of the game here. I guess at the end of the day, HubZone is easier to qualify for, but it's more strictly enforced. Now we get to the set-aside everyone's been waiting for, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. While the other set-asides and certifications we've been talking about have faced extreme scrutiny, reductions, strict enforcement, the SDVOSB set-aside is stronger than ever and appears to be growing. One of the reasons that this program is strong is in 2023, veterans had to go through the SBA's Vet Cert program, so you couldn't just self-identify as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. This advanced level of scrutiny ensured that we actually had service-disabled veterans owning these businesses. I myself went through the SDVOSB certification progress. Not bad, actually. Not bad. It was actually a relatively quick and painless process. So if you are a service-disabled veteran and you want to get your business this set aside, pretty painless and seamless process. I'll leave a link in the show notes for exactly where to go for you to do this. You know, one of the themes of all of the changes that have been coming down for contracting is, in quotes, merit-based contracting. Since SDVOSB doesn't involve race or gender preferences, it has not faced the scrutiny under the, I'll quote this, the merit-based contracting initiatives of this administration. The administration appears to support veteran entrepreneurship, and politically, there's not much of an appetite to discourage that on either side. So while 8A firms are dealing with audits and woman-owned small business companies have to prove that they are devoted to running those companies, and HUBZone businesses certainly experiencing audits and some additional scrutiny in ensuring that they're meeting all of the HUBZone requirements, SDVOSB seems to be experiencing more support. In September 2025, Senators John Kennedy and John Ossoff introduced a bipartisan bill, the Service-Disabled Veteran Opportunities in Small Business Act. This is to strengthen SDVOSB participation even further. This bill directs SBA to provide better guidance and training to agencies on hitting their SDVOSB goals. With yearly compliance reports to Congress, they want to hold agencies accountable and ensure that at least 3% of contracts are going to SDVOSBs. Now, a companion House bill was also introduced that was bipartisan backed, and Congress is even addressing business succession, so proposing that if an SDVOSB owner dies, their child could temporarily maintain the certification, not just a surviving spouse. This would protect the business value for a veteran's family. There's one agency in particular that has to look at service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses for awarding contracts before other types of companies, and that is the Veterans Administration. So the VA, routinely, you'll see they have very, very high percentages of their contracts going to the SDVOSB and VOSB companies. Something like construction, I've done entire episodes on that where 98% of, well, we're talking billions of dollars just going to SDVOSB businesses. So if you are an SDVOSB business, the VA in a lot of cases could be a potential agency that buys your service, technology, product, etc. So guys, let's wrap this up. You know, 8A, a lot of scrutiny right now, okay? I don't think it's going away. I don't have a crystal ball, but very, very doubtful, right? But we're seeing less people admitted into that program, and we're going to have to watch and see as contracting evolves over the next year or two to see what percentages are actually, meaning percentages of contracts awarded are actually going to 8A businesses. So TBD, but again, if you have an amazing company, product, or solution, you should not be worried about this, okay? Because knowing how to sell to the government, which, by the way, even a lot of people in this space, a lot of companies in this space don't really know how to do, okay? We're not just chasing solicitations. Learn how to really sell to the government, have an amazing product, solution, service, and you should be fine, okay? Woman-owned small business, we went through that. There's more scrutiny, making sure that the woman that owns the business is actually running the business and she's not just the owner on paper, right? HUBZone, there's going to be some audits and a little bit more scrutiny. And SDVOSB is just, look, it's stronger than ever. So if you are SDVOSB or you qualify for that, this is a good time for you to be in business or doing business with the federal government. At the end of the day, don't chase certifications. Build a great company, provide amazing value, and you're going to have nothing to worry about. We have plenty of free resources on this YouTube channel on how to sell to the government, how to effectively sell to the government. I give you what I learned as an acquisitions officer putting companies on contract, as a sales executive selling to the government, and after training and advising hundreds and hundreds of companies and sales executives, I can tell you that the free resource that you'll get in the YouTube channel can dramatically change the course of your business as far as the number of contracts you're winning, how to provide value, how to adhere to policy and regulations in law and in the federal acquisitions regulations to make sure that you don't get into trouble and that you can profit and provide value at the same time. If you want additional help, you can always go to GovClose. If you're looking to hire somebody that we've trained, reach out to us at GovClose. You can email me direct, rick@govclose.com. We have over 240 people in our GovClose training program. That's a 1-year program, right, where we really, I onboard everybody into this program. I make sure their deliverables are tight. They know how to analyze federal spending, put a roadmap, a pipeline together. They know how to close contracts before they get out of here and then go to work for a company, start their own consulting businesses. So if you want that, govclose.com. And if not, I will see you on the next episode.